The late 90s was a wild time. The Spice Girls had taken over the pop world, Y2K threatened to ruin the growing computer industry, and a little thing called Pokemon controlled the public consciousness of children worldwide. This sparked a new craze, one which allowed many similar franchises to make the jump from Japan to other parts of the world. One such series was Monster Rancher. Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX is a collection of the first two games in the monster raising simulation franchise. Where other games are more focused on capturing monsters and going through a grand adventure, Monster Rancher is a more non-linear affair. Starting off as a freshly minted trainer and meeting your assistant, it's your job to breed and raise monsters that you can win tournaments with, so you can eventually defeat the Big Four. This involves taking a monster to your ranch, training it with drills, sending them away on errantries as well as expeditions. This process all takes time, with most activities taking 1 week or so. There are a few ways to obtain monsters. The first is to visit the shop and obtain one of the free beginner-friendly monsters. The far more fun and interesting way to get monsters though is to use the in-game shrine to obtain monsters through real-life CDs. Well, sort of. In the original incarnation of these titles, players would replace the game disc with a CD of their choice and the game would create monsters based on the metadata on that CD. Koei Tecmo have very cleverly modernised this system for 1 and 2 DX by creating a database inside the game. I spent a lot of my days as a kid throwing whatever CD I could find in my PlayStation in the hopes of getting a cool looking monster, and with this updated system, the options are astronomical. There are some even rarer monsters available to be summoned if you select the right CD. These are largely nominal that Koei Tecmo specifically made based on the album, but they're fun to see nonetheless. There were roughly 20 different breeds in the original title, upping to around 38 in Monster Rancher 2. As well as this, they can also have a subtype that is largely made through combining. Once you own two monsters, you're able to use the lab to combine them together, with the baby monster typically inheriting the traits of both parents. The monsters themselves are diverse, with things like the big-eyed Suezo and the popular Mocky that are ready at the start, to some of the more difficult beasts, such as the Phoenix, that are only available once certain conditions are met. The DX edition brings in a further 27 monsters that were originally Japanese exclusive. It's fantastic to have such a large roster that's even further enhanced by subtypes, and it pushes the replayability of the game even further. My issue with it is that it's never clearly communicated to you just how to obtain these. It requires a lot of trial and error as well as knowledge of what events happen in what calendar month to get the low percentage chance of unlocking new breeds. Expect to save and reload before these occasions quite often if you're adamant on getting them. As you drill your monster and time passes, it will begin to develop its stats. There are 6 core stats and each breed will have a different growth in each of these. Got the hare? They typically want to become fast and hit hard, but will typically get hit hard in return. Whereas a pixie will want to raise its intellect so it can make use of its magical abilities. The information for these monsters are usually available anytime, and while they're not as detailed as I would like, they certainly need to be paid attention to. As well as basic stats and drilling, your monster will need to have its stress and loyalty kept in check. The more loyal your monster is, the less likely they are to ignore your commands in battle. If they aren't too loyal, you run the risk of them running away from home as well. If they're too stressed out, this can cut down their lifespan permanently. Going back to time, nothing is forever and nor is your monster. Yes, monsters can die of old age or if they're too injured to continue. Monsters usually last 3 years or so, with certain breeds lasting less and some longer. You can either let it run its course, or you can use the lab in town to freeze your monster to save for combining with another later on. In DX, the amount of monsters you can freeze has been doubled, meaning you can keep yourself a handy retirement home should you want the strongest monster you can. This is a very welcome addition. This all sounds like a lot, and most of the time it is. This game seems quite shallow on the surface, but once you realise just how many plates you have to spin in order to make the most of your time with your monster, it can become quite stressful. Towards the end of my playtime though, I was successfully able to juggle a few different monsters in and out of the freezer to participate in tournaments, earn me money and upkeep the ranch. Then, in the off weeks, raise my favourite monster and prepare it for the highest tier tournaments. This process was made far more convenient by the addition of fast forward. This simple menu option doubles the speed in game, making what can be quite sluggish gameplay into fast tech skips and some funny sequences. Graphically, this game is largely an improvement over the original, but there's a few occasions of flickering polygons. As they're re-releases, I can look past most of them, but it does make me wish we had a remake that was to today's graphical standards. Speaking specifically about Monster Rancher 2 for a moment, Koei Tecmo has added a remastered soundtrack to the game. While this one's largely down to preference, I quite enjoyed the old school feel of the original. This was a nice touch though. Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX isn't going to be for everyone. It's clear that Tecmo Koei really care about the series, with the tweaks to the gameplay systems, the remastered soundtrack, the upgraded graphics, as well as fighting other players' monsters by downloading their data. It's a celebration collection that's heavily steeped in nostalgia and will appeal to those that love the series. This is who it's aimed at after all, and that is great. For the more casual fan though, the focus on micromanagement, repetitive gameplay, as well as just the obscurity of how to obtain certain things means that they may not get as much enjoyment out of it. Thank you so much for watching. Come check out the next cast if you can, and we'll speak to you soon.